On pieces of it?
Trading radar.
Okay.
They brought in ground penetrating radar, and that gave them the outline of the fort. And now they're currently excavating. Been working on it for a little over a year now.
Maybe that's what
maybe 2 years.
When I saw the sign about excavating as we were driving, maybe it was that.
Could have been.
Yeah.
And then over here we have the Calvert site, which is the home of Leonard Calvert, first governor of Maryland, which is it's in and of itself a really, really important colonial site. Not only is it the home of the first governor, and basically the de facto state house, and an inn, and an ordinary, and a tavern. So it had a long life here, longer than any other building. So it's chock full of colonial era artifacts. However, we've got the fort out there, which is a huge find. Out to be the least interesting thing in that field. Because they've also discovered what appears to be 2 indigenous villages going back somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 years. So to put that into context, 5,000 years ago the pyramids were being built. And there were already people for 4,000 or 5,000 years living here.
Wow.
So you're talking about deep time. And those are going to be excavated after the fort has been excavated. But in addition to that, over here, we have about 3,000 years of indigenous activity. So this place, we call it the Leonard Calvert site as a means of convenience because the Leonard Calvert house is the most identifiable structure on that site. But really, the Leonard Calvert house is about 70, 80 years worth of history on a site that's got 3,000 years of continuous human occupation. So it's really just a small, and that's actually the most archaeologically rich for indigenous artifacts landscape here at Historic St. Mary's City.
Nice.
So there's a lot going on, and most recently, they came out publicly and announced that over by the fort they had found the first English burial in Maryland. It's the skeleton of a boy somewhere around 16, 17 years old. Who has a broken leg. Not sure if that necessarily contributed to his death. However, you can tell that there's no knitting there in the bone, so it happened around the time that he died. And there's also possibly trauma to the right side of his rib cage. So whether that means a tree fell over or he fell off of something or something like that, whatever the reason, he appears to have been buried very shortly after the building of the fort.
Okay.
So very early, and they can tell, I'm just learning this, I didn't know this, there's a seam going down the front of his skull that is linked to a gene which is only found in people of European descent. So they were able to tell immediately just from that one seam that it was a European person that they had found. So yeah, there's always discovery.
And they've dated him to be how old?
They're working on the dating. They're thinking somewhere in the 1630s, about 15 to 17 years old.
Wow. So when Calvert lost his privilege, did he just like abandon everything, or? Well,
they fought for it, and they stayed around, and eventually they got it back. But Leonard Calvert was long dead by the time that the Calverts were stripped of that power. Yeah, they eventually got that power back, but not to the level they had it before. Prior to that, prior to William and Mary, the Lord Baltimore basically had the power of king in Maryland. He could form his own laws, he could raise armies, he could levy taxes, he could do all the things that a king usually does.
Okay. So where are we now? Like we're I'm saying in the excavation part, are we almost done with this, or
site, you mean where are they in the
yeah. So this site has been excavated kind of on and off since the early 1980s.
Okay.
But they excavate in 5 foot by 5 foot pits, so that they don't disturb a lot of stuff. Because of course you can imagine the amount of change in technology between the early 1980s and now.
Right.
And normally that's how you want to do it, so that you're preserving some things to be excavated later. However, in the next couple of years, they're going to be starting the process of building a new interpretive exhibit on that site.
Gotcha.
And so they have basically 18 months to 2 years to completely excavate everything. in there.
Okay, because I was like, I mean, the timeline could go on forever.
Yes. And
So-
that's always, anytime, especially when there's construction involved, that's always kind of the push and pull. Archaeologists like to work
Go slow.
and contractors like to work fast.
Right,
And so there's always that push and pull.
right on. What's your name?
DJ,
DJ. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you for that.
of course.
Alrighty. Well, have a happy historic day.